Welcome to the Cheap Pop Wrestling Podcast, where today we present you with one of the greatest stories in professional wrestling, Cody Rhodes, from undesirable to undeniable. I'm John Hook. These are my co-hosts, Kenneth O'Neill and Dakota Allen. And let's get straight into it. Cody began training with his father, Dusty Rhodes, at 12 years old. He also got help from Al Snow and a few others. And then at the age of 20, he made his pro wrestling debut at OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, in 2006, where he won the OVW tag team titles twice, the OVW heavyweight championship, and the television championship. And then about a year later, he made his debut in WWE on Raw, where Randy Orton smacked his father, Dusty, and then they had a match later on that night where Randy Orton ended up defeating him by pinfall. And then later that year, he would team with Hardcore Holly, where they would both win the World Tag Team titles. Then he would later turn on Holly, join Ted DiBiase and Randy Orton to form Legacy in 2008. And that lasted until about 2010. Later on, he ended up breaking away from that stable, and he went as Dashing Cody Rhodes, where he would eventually win the Intercontinental title, where he brought back the white strap and the classic look to that title, the championship. And he would eventually lose that. Then in 2012 to about 2013, he formed a tag with Damian Sandow, and they went by the Rhodes Scholars. He eventually broke up with Sandow and formed a tag team with his brother Goldust, where they defeated Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins twice, where they would eventually win the tag team championships. Then in 2014 to about 2016, he went under the character of Stardust, and this is where he had some disputes with creative, which led to him leaving WWE. And Dakota, I want to hand it off to you from there.
Well, thank you, sir. So as John said, Cody left the WWE in 2016 and began his career renaissance in a sense. He was feeling very disappointed in his creative direction, yearning for more and a chance to be a top star in professional wrestling, eventually asking for his release from WWE contract on May 21st, 2016. Excuse me, everybody. His release granted the next day. On his own and with his career solely in his hands to manage, Cody constructed a list. It was kind of a big thing when he first came out onto the independent scene. And it was just a list of matches on the independent circuit of who he wanted to have matches with names including Adam Cole, Kurt Angle, the Young Bucks, and several others. You can look up this post about the list. You'll see all kinds of names on it. He worked all across the world for several smaller indie companies, including some larger ones too, including PWG, Ring of Honor, and eventually what would be his next biggest step in his career on the indies, joining Bullet Club in New Japan. The Bullet Club he joined at this time was the one led by I believe he's technically the fourth leader, in Kenny Omega, which is probably the most popular Bullet Club had ever been at that point, was under the Kenny Omega reigns. Later on, 2016, is when he adopted the moniker the American Nightmare, joined Bullet Club, turned heel, and made it to New Japan Pro Wrestling, joining the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Adam Page, Marty Scurll, and several others of the OG Bullet Club members, and just saw unprecedented critical success everywhere he went after doing that, mostly in Ring of Honor and New Japan. As part of the Bullet Club, Cody Rhodes wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom for the first time in his career against Juice Robinson in 2017. His role in the stable and strong sense of self as the American Nightmare unlocked previously closed doors, including an opportunity at the World Championship, which he would win in Ring of Honor in June of 2017, challenging Christopher Daniels for the Ring of Honor World Championship at the Best in the World pay-per-view, and winning the title there. Also, in the same year or two to follow, he makes New Japan Pro Wrestling history and wrestled in the main event of the first ever independent New Japan Pro Wrestling event in America, which was a very big deal at the time. It was the debut of the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship, which Kenny Omega won as the first ever champion. In this event, Cody Rhodes squared off against the huge wrestling legend in general, Kazuchika Okada, for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, ultimately losing that bout. He spoke very highly about his match with Okada and everything else, and one of the bigger turning points of his career, leading with one of the bigger points kind of coming from all this is Dave Meltzer. I know we said some horrible shit about him, but we don't take it back. We stand by it.
Oh, yeah.
But he's kind of the reason for this last little bit of his success and the creation of AEW. Dave Meltzer answered a fan question about the possibility of an independent wrestling event after the New Japan America event, selling 10,000 tickets, and it was just disregarded. He disregarded the possibility at all and called it a pipe dream. Rhodes took to Twitter and said, "I'll take that bet, Dave." The result would be Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega coming together to finance and execute All In, the biggest independent wrestling event since the death of WCW. All In featured Rhodes challenging Nick Aldis for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship, a title once held by his father. The crowd was really into the match. It was an emotional show, with Cody ended up winning that match as well, so also getting a NWA World Heavyweight Championship reign under his belt as well. Excellent match. The match had had 50,000 buys on pay-per-view and drew in 11,263 fans live, proving that there is hope for more just outside of WWE in America. The success of All In did open the door to the possibility of an alternative national wrestling promotion to WWE, and Tony Khan kind of bought into the idea of it as well. So with the Bucks, Cody, Jericho, and Kenny Omega, they form AEW. Cody Rhodes' AEW run is kind of a mixed bag by a lot of fans. It's started strong, didn't end very strong. It's got its highs and lows.
Yeah, it fell off the wheels towards the end.
We could do 7 hours just on his AEW run. We're going to try and keep this short, as concise as possible. Do recommend you go back and look through some of his matches, though, as well. From there, or just look up Cody Rhodes' heel highlights. Honestly, it's some of the best work he's done ever. But as an executive vice president for AEW, Rhodes helped manage the company through its television launch in October of 2019, a global pandemic that would force wrestling shows to take place without fans, and an expansion, which included a second television show and a reality show starring him and his wife, Brandy. When fans returned to arenas after the pandemic, the loving adoration of Rhodes faded. Mismanaged storylines with up-and-coming talent like Anthony Ogogo and QT Marshall turned the tide, as did constant meta-references to behind-the-scenes drama. Still a huge problem AEW has at this point. Those product issues
still
collided.
A problem.
It's a horrible problem. But these issues did collide head-on with Cody's contract expirings and a personal issue that Rhodes has yet to talk about, all leading to his departure from AEW. He's never fully opened about why he left the company he created, but he did, as we all know, as he's now back home in the WWE, returning at WrestleMania 38, where we send it to Ken. Tell us about your boy.
I just want to add one thing on there to the departure of the AEW. He did do a segment with Stone Cold on the Smoking Skull session, and he had talked about not wanting to be a gatekeeper and putting all the new young talent over. And that was his big reason for wanting to move forward. But we get to WrestleMania 38. We have a storyline where Seth Rollins is constantly in Vince's office trying to get a match at WrestleMania, trying to have his WrestleMania moment. Speculations were pretty high that Cody was going to return to the WWE after his AEW departure, but nothing was confirmed. So if I'm not mistaken, I do believe Cody arrived that day, snuck in the back, and came out. So we're halfway through WrestleMania 38. Rollins goes out. We get Cody's epic Vader entrance, which ultimately led to a ESPY award for his return. We then set ourselves forward to a 3-match run between him and Seth Rollins. Cody taking all of them. The match at WrestleMania was a 45-minute banger. I mean, it was just some of the best wrestling, and in my opinion, probably the best match of WrestleMania. But we had the 3 matches after that, Cody winning all of them, which set them on a collision course for Hell in a Cell. Couple week before the match, Cody kind of pops his pec a little bit, tries to work through it, eventually tears the pectoral muscle completely off, requiring him to supposed to miss time, but it shows up, and we all remember that scene of Cody taking his jacket off and chest just completely purple, blue, and every other color you can think about. Cody went on to finish the match. I think we were all kind of stunned. Typically with those injury stories, you're kind of like, oh, he'll just kind of favor. When he took that jacket off, we were all like, holy crap. It got bad.
That is one of the worst pains you can feel in your life, is tearing your pec off. I haven't experienced that, thank God, but I've seen guys absolutely tear it straight off the bone. And they're out for a lot longer than what Cody was. They're out for about 8 or 9 months. Cody came back a little bit sooner than that. Not to get too far ahead there.
No, you're fine. So Cody goes out with that injury, requiring surgery. We didn't really get too many updates, for the first couple months. They really built the story for Cody's return for the Rumble, which I thought was done excellent. Done great. It was greatly done. There we go. Jesus Christ. So we were starting to get the rehab stories. Seeing him work out again in the ring. Fast forward to the Royal Rumble, which we watched live. We kind of had our thoughts and speculations on when he'd come in, but I think we all kind of knew he was going to be the last one to enter the Rumble at that point. But got into all the way down to between him and Gunther, which is a great final 2, I think, to finish that Royal Rumble, man. Like, they were both great. Which then now set him on the collision course and where we're at today, taking on the Bloodline. Some of Cody's promo work has been the best, of his career. The back and forth between him and Paul Heyman, Solo, and then his interactions with Roman have just been great storytelling, and they're both really good on the mic. And every time Roman thinks he gets him, he pulls him back in. But we have now locked in their final date with Destiny. That's going to be this Sunday at the main event of the Sunday event. I think we're all pretty excited to watch that match. We're going to give our picks here in a little bit on who we think is going to win. Pretty sure everyone knows who I'm going to pick, but Cody's overall story arc from where he's at, where he began, and where he's at now, man, is true testament. Sometimes, people say, stick it out, fight through it, doing that stuff. I mean, yeah, it's considered running, but I think the road he built from there really separated him from everybody else.
Yeah. Like I said in the beginning, it's one of the best stories in professional wrestling. He worked his ass off, Went through a whole lot of shit with the whole, like, when he came in at 20 years old and then leaving the company as one of the worst gimmicks he could have possibly gotten. Just basically a spinoff of Stardust, but just worse, I guess. Into making his own company and then coming back and being one of the biggest stars in pro wrestling.
And I think the whole Stardust thing for me, man, is like, even though it was the worst gimmick stuff, he still tried to make it the best he could. You know what I mean? Like, he still bought into the story. He still tried to do everything he could. And I want to say there was a article that he had done with, I can't remember what the reporter's name was, but he remembers being in the back and Charlotte Flair was talking to a kid and had pointed to Cody and was like, like that Stardust. And the kid kind of looked at him confused. He's like, well, also used to be Cody Rhodes. And the kid still didn't know who he was. So I think that kind of hit him, and knowing that he wasn't going anywhere fast with that gimmick.
Yeah.
And yeah, running, but starting AEW and giving everybody an opportunity to make more money and, putting another rival out there because, after WCW's fall, there's never been anybody really give WWE any kind of competition. And we're not saying AEW's close, but, it was
when he
enough
was
of a
there,
scare
it
to,
was.
yeah, it was enough of a scare to get Vince's attention, and having those meetings and, doing those things, was great. I'd highly recommend anybody watch that Smoking Skull Sessions with Stone Cold because he kind of gets deep in all the stories. Talks about chasing the WWE Championship because it's the one that got away from Dusty, and what that title means to him. I'm hoping that when he wins, not if, win, Hook, okay, win, not if. He's supposed to bring some kind of version of the Winged Eagle back, and I think we're all there for that one.
Absolutely. I think he is gonna win, and the only reason I say this is because the two shows that we've all three been to, that title is for sale every time.
Yeah.
The Winged Eagle was there. Yep. Dakota, you out there, bud?
Well,
Yeah, any thoughts, man?
Something, Cody Rhodes.
Something.
So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Cheap Pop Podcast, on Instagram at Cheap Pop Wrestling Podcast, TikTok at Pop This Potty for the Cheap, and make sure you give the TNJ Sports Podcast a like on Facebook. Thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully Cody can bring it home on Sunday. This is Hook signing out. Oh, he beat me to it.
I beat you to it.
This is Hook signing out.
And as always, stay toxic, Kings.